Hello, this is Sharon from Hapus Training, and this is another video. I think it's the last but one, talking about emotional well-being and how we can improve our emotional well-being. So what we're going to be looking at now is forgiveness. So once again, I'm making use of this snazzy training course that I put all this effort into writing, and I'm going to read it from my training. Okay, so forgiveness. This is one of my favourite quotes. Holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Okay, this course is not learning about how to be a more virtuous person. This course is about learning how to be happier and healthier person. And it is for this reason that we're looking at forgiveness. What is forgiveness? In some ways, it can be easier to look at what forgiveness is not. Forgiveness is not forgetting what happened or saying that it doesn't matter. It's not saying that it didn't hurt you or condoning the behaviour or agreeing that it's okay for it to happen again. Forgiveness is making a conscious, compassionate choice to let go of the effect the behaviour is having on you and any resentful feelings that you're holding on to. For many of us, we may have experienced behaviours that feel really unforgivable, terrible things that have had a long-lasting effect on our lives, or maybe smaller events that have still hurt and upset us. Surely there are many things that we're totally justified in feeling hurt and angry about. So why should we forgive? Simply put, forgiveness is good for you. That's a bit rude, isn't it? Anyway, forgiveness is good for us. It's good for the person that is doing the forgiving. Whatever's happening, you are the one that continues to suffer by holding on to it. There's plenty of annoyingly robust scientific evidence to prove that forgiveness is good for you in many, many ways. Forgiveness is good for your heart, quite literally. One study from the Journal of Behavioural Medicine found forgiveness to be associated with lower heart rate, blood pressure, as well as stress relief. This can bring long-term health benefits to your heart and overall health. A later study found forgiveness to be positively associated with 5 measures of health: physical symptoms, medications used, sleep quality, fatigue, and somatic complaints. It seems that reduction in negative affect, depressive symptoms, strength and spirituality, conflict management, stress relief. One finds through forgiveness, I'm sorry, that's not made any sense. Strength and spirituality, conflict management, and stress relief one finds through forgiveness all have a significant impact on overall health. So to sum it up, forgiveness is good for your body, your relationships, and your place in the world. There's enough reason to convince yourself, to convince virtually anyone to do the work of letting go of anger and working on forgiveness, especially when we look at the reverse and consider the effect of not forgiving and holding on to resentments. If you're unforgiving, you might bring anger and bitterness into every relationship and new experience, become so wrapped up in the wrong that you can't enjoy the present, become more depressed or anxious, feel that your life lacks meaning or purpose, or that you're at odds with your spiritual beliefs, lose valuable and enriching connectedness with others. Basically, it just gets in the way of feeling good. Being hurt by someone, particularly someone you love and trust, can cause anger, sadness, and confusion. If you dwell on hurtful events or situations, grudges filled with resentments, vengeance, and hostility can take root. If you can allow negative feelings to crowd out positive feelings, then resentments can act like magnets. When in a resentful frame of mind, it becomes easier to become negative about other things, almost without noticing, and it can become a habitual way of being. The weak, according to Mahatma Gandhi, the weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is an attribute of the strong. So, maybe culturally we see that as a weakness, but in reality, it's just good for our emotional health. And that's what we're looking at here. We're just almost sticking to the facts, it's good for you. Therefore, it's, sometimes I'm not going to lie, I think a bit like, I can hold on to stuff a bit like, I'm precious, I want to play with it, but it's not helpful. So We're going to look here about some ideas to help us forgive. The first thing is to know that it's possible and to be willing to do it. So, it's not rocket science. Sometimes it can feel a bit overwhelming, but willingness is the key. This is huge. Culturally, I would say we're almost encouraged to look for blame and slander others for bad behaviour. We've got that kind of culture to a degree. I do not feel that the idea of forgiveness is seen as particularly cool or wise. One may even say that it seems a bit weak or hippy-dippy, which is a real shame because on so many levels, considering the strong scientific evidence documenting the health advantages, not to mention the social benefits that flow from such behaviour. So knowing how good it is for you and making a decision to forgive is a vital and massive first step. Secondly, remember that, to be blunt, you're doing it for you. You're the one that's going to benefit from it the most. Do it for your loved ones. Do it for the people that you care about, because it can be hard sometimes when we're feeling so negative towards the person we feel resentful for. We're like, oh, why should I forgive you? You're not doing it for them. We're doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for the people around us, the people we actually love. They're going to benefit from you being happier, calmer and healthier. And also at the end of the day, we're going to set a good example for our kids and teach or those people around us that it's a better way of being. Acknowledge and accept all your feelings. So it can be difficult to forgive without first feeling all the anger and the pain that you're experiencing. We're not trying to be Mahatma Gandhi here. We're just trying to do the best that we can. So it's okay to just acknowledge those feelings. Allow yourself to acknowledge all those feelings. Talk them out with a trusted friend, or maybe you need to get a counsellor. Acknowledge the effect of what's happened that has had on you, and that can really help you get clear about what you're angry about. It can be helpful just to tell that person and who's hurt you how you feel by pretending to a cushion, a wall, a picture, or a friend. Shout, scream, swear, cry as much as you like to get the emotions out. Just as an aside, it's really a good idea to actually do this to the person in question. It can create more problems and then more guilt for you. And it could lead to further arguments. But this may be, this is going to depend on you. It's going to depend on the situation. And, probably always, if you are going to do it with care, talk it through with somebody first, be quite clear about what you want to get out of it, what may or may not work or go wrong. It's something to sort of be undertaken carefully, I suppose, in an ideal world. But getting it out is really helpful. Another way of doing it is to write a letter. Just get out all your feelings, rage, frustration, pain. Again, you might want to send it, you might not. Or you might even write two letters. Write one where you're swearing as much as you like, and then write another that explains clearly how you feel. If you feel that that is going to be beneficial and lead to more positive outcomes, that might be something you want to do. Accept, as we spoke about acceptance before, what has happened, and we can't change the situation. We can only change our response to it. So sometimes, like, holding on to that resentment is wishing things were different, but actually accepting that things have happened the way they are. Take some time to consider the effect that holding on to the pain and bad feelings are actually having on you and maybe those around you, and how it might feel not to feel negative towards that person anymore. Know that while we're not responsible for what happened, we are responsible for what we choose to do about it. Know that just because you're choosing to forgive someone, this doesn't mean that you have to like them or have a relationship with them. You're not saying that what they did was okay, just that you're just not going to hold on to it or let it affect you anymore. Remove the victim. Often we take what's happened personally, and why shouldn't we? It happened to us. But what the person did, it says more about them than it ever does about us. Get curious about what you feel about what that behaviour says about you. That might help us for letting go of those emotions. So if your parents were cruel, does that, on some level, do you think that you deserved it? If your partner cheated, does that make you feel like you were undesirable? What they did is about them, not us, their choices and their behaviour. However much it may feel personal, it isn't. But just to acknowledge those feelings can really help us to process it and let it go. Maybe think about what you wish had happened and acknowledge that you can't change what happened. It can help us to accept it. Think about that person's humanity. They're a person just like us. They hurt, they cry, they get confused and mess up, just like we do. Try to understand what was going on for them. That might be helpful to help you to understand why somebody behaved in the way they did, and maybe see that it is about them and not necessarily about us. The key thing always to remember with these things: hurt people. Fast forward the tape. So at the end of your life, would you be really glad that you held on to that resentment, or would you rather let it go? So for some of this is all can be, a little bit heavy for if, I don't know, somebody cut you up in a queue, but this is perhaps the kind of stuff we might need to do for bigger resentments, things that we might be holding on to in our lives, just some ideas, some techniques that may be helpful. Obviously, we can use that sort of just the principle of just letting go of stuff and not holding on to it. And again, this is about our emotional well-being and our health. This is not necessarily because we're trying to be super virtuous people. So another important thing to talk about with forgiveness is, what if the person that we need to forgive is ourselves? So again, if we're struggling with our mental health or we've got ADHD, it can be really easy to have an awful lot of things that we're beating ourselves up over. Often it can be far harder to forgive ourselves than anybody else. It's one thing to forgive others, but letting go of the resentments and judgments we hold about ourselves can be far harder. The thing is, if feeling negative towards others is harmful, the effects of self-blame and anger is actually significantly worse and has an impact on all areas of our lives. Mind affects body in a zillion interconnecting ways, and those guilty feelings you're nurturing can be generating chemicals that are headed straight for your vital organs. Cheerful, eh? They increase your heart rate, raise your blood pressure, disrupt your digestion, tense your muscles, and dump cholesterol into your bloodstream, and reduce your ability to think straight. And every time you remember what you did and wince, those bad feelings give you a fresh hit of corrosive chemicals. So quite often if we're ruminating and we're going over things, then again, this is just not helping our general health and generally sort of pulling our mood down and making us more prone to feeling anxious and depressed. So, it is, again, we can acknowledge things that we've done, but holding on to stuff, it's that resentment, that kind of gone off guilt that is really harmful for us. So how to forgive ourselves? Well, we can, of course, apply the ideas that we've just looked at earlier on, write a letter to ourselves, all of those things that we looked at forgiving others. And we can also try a few extra ideas. So get clear, think about exactly what it is you feel bad about. Write it down, talk to a friend. This can help us to get a bit of distance and be clear. Sometimes we might find that when we look at the bad feeling, it's just totally unjustified or nowhere near as bad as we thought. So it's just like this general malaise of guilt that we don't want to look at. And when we look at it, it's like a monster under the bed. It's just, there's nothing there of any substance. Check it out. Do you really need to feel bad? Would you consider that if a friend had done the same thing, do they need to feel bad? We can get into the habit of just feeling guilty and then start feeling guilty about things that just don't deserve that level of guilt. Often we're so much harder on ourselves than we are on others. Maybe spend some time thinking about unrealistic expectations. Most of us have a set of unconscious rules hovering in the back of our minds about how we expect ourselves to behave. But those rules may be which we've absorbed in childhood rather than things that we actually believe or think are realistic. and then they can lead us just to be unnecessarily hard on ourselves. So having that sort of courage to really look at these things can hugely help. Think about who you're feeling bad is helping. Is it serving any useful purpose? Sometimes we feel like we ought to feel bad, but who's it really helping? Could you maybe just let it go? Realize that the hurt feelings, guilty thoughts, and tummy tightening stress you feel whenever you think of your offence is what is actually making you feel bad, not what you did 2 minutes or 10 years ago. It's your reaction to it today that's causing a problem. And it's really worth doing that work to just stop it from happening and letting it go. If you really feel you messed up, then maybe make some amends. If you're sure it won't be harmful to you or the other person, make a sincere apology in person or via a letter. If this isn't possible, then you could make a virtual apology, write a letter or say it out loud to a picture of them. And then consider if there's anything you could do that would be helpful and make the situation better. Volunteer your time, make or buy a present, or support someone. This isn't a penance, that's not what it's about, but a way of letting go and ending the fight with yourself. So of choosing a more positive response than guilt and remorse. If you really do feel guilty, well then acknowledge that just holding on to that, what's that going to actually do? But maybe just saying, okay, I'm going to let go of it and I'm going to do X, Y, Z just to make some form of amends. Again, it's about acceptance. It's about moving on from things. Hit the stop button. Replaying the tape over and over again in your head isn't going to change what happened or help you or the person you hurt. It's just going to make you feel bad and affect the person you're spending time, affect those people around you. So, trying to make that choice just to stop, let it go. And again, when we talk about that neural programming, we can teach ourselves because our brain gets into that habit of ruminating, that habit of feeling guilty. And it can almost, even though it's uncomfortable, it can feel comfortable in its familiarity. And it can feel uncomfortable to let it go because we're not used to it. But if you can just put that toy down, stop playing with it, let it go. We can teach our brain to respond in a different way that releases energy, that helps us to feel better, allows us to be more present with the people around us and just generally feel happier. So, bit to think about there. There is obviously loads of information online around these general principles that we've looked at. Forgiveness, there will be tons of information out there and lots of kind of people who are very wise and very knowledgeable and very helpful, far more so than I am. But I hope that what we've talked about, if you're still watching and you've got this far, has been helpful. All the best then. Thanks. Bye.